In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build this component, which has this input that has a button floating on top of it, and also the images which are floating on the bottom of this component. We're going to use positioning to do this styling. All right, we're going to start by creating a main element that will hold everything in the center. It's going to have an H1 and a paragraph for our text. And underneath this, we're going to have a form that's going to contain the input and the button that goes on top. And inside this button, we're going to have an SVG. For the input, it's going to be type email. And let's also give it a placeholder saying your email address.com, just so that the users know they have to enter their email address there. All right, perfect. And underneath the form, we're going to have a div, which will have a class of images wrapper that's going to contain 5 images. I have some images from Pravatar and added some alts. That's resulted in these 5 images. And with that, we're done with the HTML. In our CSS, going to have box sizing border box on all elements. And on the body, we want a very light gray color, font family of pop-ins, and we want to center everything with flex, align at the center, justify content center, min height, 100 viewport heights, and mark 0 to remove the scroll. And just like that, the main element is centered in the screen. Let's see it by adding a background color to it, but this time it's going to be a linear gradient that goes to the right from this blue color to this blue color. And we'll have the color of the text to be white. Perfect. Let's add some padding around the items, 4 rem top and bottom and 1 rem left and right. And we're going to make this take up the full space, but we're going to limit it to 800 pixels. So it's looking just like this. Now the images are a bit too big, but we're going to make them smaller and get them out of the document flow. Then everything is going to look better. Let's center the text with text align center, add the border radius of 10 pixels, and we want a box shadow of 0, 0, 0, 20 pixels, and a very light gray. This means 0 on the x-axis, 0 on the y-axis, no blur, and 20 pixel spread. And in combination with the box radius, it's going to look like this, which is perfect. Next, for our H1 element, we want to remove the margin top. For the paragraph, we want a different shape of white. We're going to use the form as a wrapper and make the input take up 100% of its width. And then we're going to use position absolute to put the button on top of the input. But we're going to use the form to control the width of the input and also have it position relative, so that we can place the button relative to it. Let me show you what I mean. First, on the form, let's add some margin so we can see everything. We're going to have 2 rem top, 0 rem bottom, and we're going to center it left and right. For now, let's also push down the images, but we're going to remove this later. Margin top, 3 rem, just so we have more space so we can see what's happening. Next, for the input, we're going to say, take up the full width you can, just like that. But using the form, we're going to limit it to 400 pixels. Let's give the input some padding, 1 rem. We're going to change the background color to be a light gray with opacity and add a border of 1 pixel, so it looks like this. And we're also going to give it a border radius of 50 pixels to have the rounded corners. And right now the color is black, so let's change it to white, adding color white here. And we can increase the font size to be 1 rem. Awesome. Now, the button, as you can see, it's underneath the input. So we're going to take it and we're going to say position absolute. That will take it out of the document flow. And we're going to say top, let's see, 5 pixels, and right 5 pixels, which will put it there because we don't have the position relative on the form. So let's add it. Position relative. And now the button will be relative to the form. But because the input takes up the full space of the form, it looks like the button is relative to the input. So back to the button, we want a background of white and we want to remove the border. Let's add the border radius of 50% to make it round. And we're going to have a height of 100%. So basically we want it to be as height as the wrapper. And we can use aspect ratio 1 to make the width and height be the same. Meaning that if we have set the height, then the width is going to be the same value. But as you can see now, it's not really perfect because it takes up the full height, but we're still pushing it down 5 pixels. If we had 0, it would have been perfect. So we need to subtract this amount. So we can leave 5 pixels here. And for the height, we can use calc 100% minus 10 pixels, which is the double of the top property, basically meaning that we have 5 pixels on the top and 5 pixels on the bottom. That's why we want the height to be -10. And just like that, it's now positioned perfectly. 5 pixels on the top, 5 on the bottom, and 5 on the right. We can also use display flex, align item center, justify content center to basically center the icon perfectly in the center of the button. And with that, we position the button exactly where we want it to be. Let's also have a hover effect where we're basically going to swap the background color from white to this blue color, and the color will be white. So whenever we hover, we transform the button to be blue. Let's add cursor pointer so we see it's clickable. And we can also add an active state, which is basically going to say opacity 0.8. Whenever we click on it, it's going to have a lower opacity, just like that. Now for the input, I don't like the fact that the placeholder is kind of gray. It doesn't look good. So we can go back to the input and we can use placeholder to style the color to something of a very light gray. So now when we have the text, it's white. With the placeholder, it's a lighter gray. Awesome. And the last step is going to be to style the images and place them right on the line here. How are we going to do that? Go back to the images. We don't need this anymore. Choose the images wrapper to style all the images inside. We want their width to be 75 pixels. This is wrapper like that. We want them to have some margin between them. So 0 top and bottom. 1 rem left and right. Let's make them circle with border radius 50% and add the border of 5 pixels solid white. Beautiful. And last but not least, a box shadow of a black color with very low opacity. We won't see it now, but when we're going to put the images here, it's going to be visible. And now on the wrapper itself, we're going to say position absolute. And this will take the wrapper out of the document flow. We want the wrapper to take up the full width, so we can say width 100%. And let's put it left 0 and bottom -50 pixels, which will make the images jump there because we don't have position relative on its parent, which is going to be the main element. Here we add position relative, and now the images look very nice right there. And with that, you almost completed the challenge. The last thing to fix is making it responsive, because right now, when we have the images on mobile, as you can see, they are stacked on each other. So you don't have much space there. So what can we do? We can come down here and add a media query saying that whenever we are on a screen that has a width less than 550 pixels, the images in the image wrapper that come after the fourth element, including the fourth one, we want to hide them. Basically, we want to hide the fourth and the fifth element. So let's see how that looks. Look at that. On mobile, we're only going to have 3 images. We can also remove the margin maybe. Let's make it 0.75 rem, then they're closer, and we can go even deeper on mobile. Look at that. Beautiful. If you want, you can even remove more elements by saying n+3 here. So we can have only 2 on mobile. Or you could add another check to see if the width is less than 300 pixels, and then remove another element. But for now, we're going to keep it like this. Awesome. Congratulations on completing the challenge.